He was born to rule, but waited nearly 60 years to wear the crown. Edward VII, son of Queen Victoria, became king in 1901, already in the twilight of his life. Known as a man of charm, diplomacy, and indulgence, he transformed the British monarchy from rigid tradition to modern influence. While others saw a figurehead, Edward became the great peacemaker of Europe, laying the groundwork for alliances that would shape the 20th century. But behind the regal image was a world on the brink, and Edward, the king of elegance, would not live to see it collapse. A quiet man with a steady hand, Emile Loubet guided France through one of its most delicate transitions. Born a provincial lawyer, he rose to become president of the Republic at the dawn of a new century. Calm, measured, and often underestimated, Loubet helped steer France away from internal chaos and toward diplomacy abroad. It was under his leadership that the Entente Cordiale was signed, mending centuries of tension with Britain and shifting the balance of European power. He ruled without spectacle, but with purpose. And though history rarely shouts his name, it remembers what he built in silence. This is Leopold II, King of the Belgians. Composed, deliberate, every movement measured, every glance weighted. He ruled a small European nation, but his vision reached far beyond its borders. Behind the calm gaze lies the mind of an empire builder. Restless, calculating, relentless. Millions would live and die in the shadow of his ambitions. He would leave a legacy of both grandeur and cruelty. Revered by some, condemned by history, he shaped a chapter of the world few can forget, and none should ignore. He was born a king, crowned from birth before he could walk, before he could speak. Alfonso XIII, the last king of Spain before its Second Republic, ruled a nation in constant tension between monarchy, modernity, and unrest. Young, elegant, and often bold, he carried himself with charm and ambition. But his reign was marked by instability, political divisions, colonial losses, and the slow unraveling of a dynasty. Behind that gaze was a man navigating storms he could never fully control. Revered by some, criticized by many, he remains a symbol of a monarchy in twilight. And here, for a moment, we see him breathe again. He was not born to command with grandeur, but to endure with weight. Victor Emmanuel III, King of Italy, stood at the crossroads of empire and collapse. Small in stature, modest in manner, yet at the heart of 2 world wars and a fading monarchy. He oversaw the rise of Mussolini and stood silent as the tides of fascism swept through his kingdom. A king who watched more than he acted. His reign marked by hesitation and history's judgment etched into every line of his face. To some, a figure of stability. To others, a symbol of passive complicity. And yet, in this moment, behind the uniform and medals, we see a man caught in the quiet burden of his crown. He was born into royalty, but became a symbol of empire. Franz Joseph I ruled the Austro-Hungarian Empire for nearly 70 years, through revolutions, assassinations, and a world on the brink of collapse. Behind the rigid uniform and solemn gaze was a man shaped by duty and haunted by loss. He buried his wife, his son, and eventually, his world. A monarch of marble resolve, yet flesh and breath beneath the crown. To some, a relic of a fading age. To others, the last true emperor of Europe. And here, just for a moment, he returns, not as a statue of power, but as a man once again alive. He was born into grandeur and marched headlong into history. Wilhelm II, the last German emperor, ruled with ambition, pride, and a thirst for greatness. He modernized the German Empire, military, industry, and navy. Yet his restless spirit often outran diplomacy. His voice thundered in speeches, his presence filled rooms, and his decisions shaped the path to world war. Behind the medals and mustache was a man torn between imperial legacy and personal insecurity. He believed himself chosen, unshakable, but the empire he built would crumble before him. And here, the Kaiser returns, not as a figure of power, but as a man standing on the edge of a changing world. He stood as the last monarch of a united Scandinavia, and perhaps the last to dream of its former glory. King Oscar II ruled with intellect, restraint, and a quiet confidence. A poet and a naval strategist, he believed in reason, yet carried the weight of legacy on his shoulders. He watched a modern world rise around an aging empire, while his gaze still reached back to an era when Sweden stood among Europe's great powers. Though the crown remained steady, the century was shifting, and Oscar, with all his dignity, remained a king caught between history and the future rushing in. He was the last Tsar of Russia, born into majesty, yet bound by the burdens of history. Nicholas II ruled a realm of immense size, tradition, and unrest. Gentle by nature, yet cast into an age of revolution and war, he struggled to reconcile duty with destiny. Behind the regal uniform was a man, reserved, dignified, and tragically unprepared for the storm to come. His reign would end in fire and sorrow, but in this moment, he remains as he was remembered, calm, composed, and unaware that he would be the final shadow of an empire. He was the last great sultan of a fading empire. Abdulhamid II ruled the Ottoman Empire during an era of deep transformation and deeper uncertainty. Behind his composed gaze was a mind always calculating, balancing tradition with the pressures of modern reform. He strengthened the central government, resisted foreign domination, and introduced the first Ottoman constitution. But his reign was also marked by censorship, secret police, and growing unrest. To his supporters, he was a symbol of unity. To his critics, a ruler clinging to absolute power. In this rare image, he lives again, not just as a historical figure, but as a man bearing the weight of a world in decline. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through history, consider subscribing to Academy of Shorts. New cinematic portraits and untold stories are released every week. Like the video, share your thoughts below, and stay tuned. There's so much more to come.